Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, hello, welcome. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I would really appreciate that. Like, please guys, subscribe to my channel. Anyways, in today's video I'm going to be talking about admission process. This is like a continuation from the previous video that I made about moving to the UK via the student visa route. So I'm going to be talking about getting an admission, what school to apply to, and like factors to consider when you're applying to school. So I don't think this video is very structured, but it's just here and there. Just make sure you watch everything to get all the information. I don't know how to better put it than this. It's not the most structured video, but I'm trying. I don't know how to explain it. The first thing is you should know what course you want to apply for, whether it is undergraduate or whether it is masters. If you're applying to school, if your plan is to apply to school and probably go back to Nigeria after you're done, that's fine. But if your aim is to stay in the UK, continue to live in the UK after school, then I would advise that you check the employability rate of that particular course, so you don't finish school and you're jammed. Nobody's employing in the UK. Do you get what I mean? So check what the employability rate is, and yeah, before you choose a particular course. That's if you're planning to stay in the UK via the employee route or something like that. I don't know if it makes sense. If what I'm saying makes sense. Like if you plan on going back to Nigeria after school, that's no problem. But if you want to continue to stay here, just to be safe, check the employability rate. For instance, you want to apply for psychology, check the rate of the employability rate before you apply psychology. But before you finish psychology and nobody's really employing. Do you get what I mean? Like if the employability rate is high, then you have high chances of, even as an international student, you'll have higher chances of being employed. But if it is low, best believe that most of these slots will be filled with like home student and like people that already have a visa living in the country. I don't even get what I mean, because if they're employing you, they're the ones sponsoring your visa. Anyways, that's just by the way. So factors to consider when you're picking university that you want to apply to. I would say check the rate at which they accept international students. I think I'm talking too fast. Let me slow down. So check the rate at which they accept international students. So it is worth just checking the ranking, or if you have friends in the UK that you can just easily ask them that, oh, how did this go? And if you're not sure, just type on Google like what unis accept international students more. Do you know, that kind of thing? So it's just to be safe. I mean, you have like options to apply to multiple universities, but you don't want to be wasting your slot on schools that are not worth it. And just this morning, I was going through a particular school. I think, is it Portsmouth or something? Like the process of application seems somewhat different from most universities that I've seen. Personally, I would say stay away from universities like that. I would tend to go for the ones that have like the general application process, that they are all similar, because theirs had like, oh, you have to convert your result to like the UK standards, those kind of thing, which not many universities do. So I would advise that you stay away from universities like that. So another thing to consider, after you filter what university offer your course, you already know what course you want to study, and sort of you should have an idea, like a list, should I say. It can be like a list of like 10 universities or even 20 universities that are offering that course that you want to study. So now you can now take your time to go through like the school fees. And not all universities have the same school fees rate for international students. I know the rate is like the same thing for home students, but for international students they vary. So I would say go for the cheapest option. Only if you have money, you can afford the most expensive one. By all means, go for whatever university you like. But they all have different rates, so it will be advisable to, because school fees is not the only cost you're going to incur during the process. You still have to consider maintenance. You still have to consider maintenance. You have to consider housing. So I would say go for the cheapest university, and it's also good to check their rating. But honestly, I don't really force so much about the rating in the university. As long as the course is accredited, that's fine by me. So make sure you check the school fees, and also it is also worth checking schools that have like school fees waivers. They're like schools they have like international school waiver. They can like deduct. It can be like, okay, after you get an admission, there's going to be so amount taken away, it's like a scholarship, but it's called a school fees waiver. So it could be a thousand pounds, it could be £1,000, it could be 1,500, it could be 2,000, depending on what university. So it is what's just going for the lowest cost as much as you can. And I would say sometimes it's not advisable to go for like the cheapest price, but it's just when you're considering, it's not just the price, also consider maybe the location. When you're considering, also consider maybe the location and all this kind of thing. But just go for like a reasonable price, I would say, because some universities are really really expensive and some are like quite reasonable. Well, I mean, everything is still expensive, but quite reasonable within the school fees range. So another thing you also need to consider before you choose the university is the cost of living. As I've said, school fees is not the only cost you're going to incur, so you have to consider your housing situation. What is the cost of living in that town or that city or wherever it is? You to have an idea, you can check the university you're applying to. Like, you can check university student accommodation fees, how much are they paying, what are they offering. And you don't have to stay in student accommodation, you can always find accommodations outside. But with the university accommodation prices, you can sort of have an idea of what it can cost, or what it will possibly cost to live in that city. So I would say, like, for instance, cities, if you're applying to universities like in London, best believe that they're expensive. I mean, London is the high life, is the fun life and all of that, but is it really worth it? If you have the money, by all means go for it. But if you're considering money, you can definitely choose universities in locations that are less high rise places. I would say mostly places in the north, they are less expensive than places in the south. So I'll say it is worth considering universities in the north. And it doesn't have to be in England. I know Scotland is a lot cheaper, or is it Wales? One of them ones. So it is worth considering places. They are all in the UK. So you could decide to go to Wales, you could decide to go to Scotland, you could go to Northern Ireland or England. I think England is the most expensive. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. I think England is the most expensive. But anyway, I know Scotland is way cheaper and I even think their school fees rate is also cheaper. So it is something you should put into consideration as well. The cost of living there is cheaper and everything like that. You might not have the social life, you might not necessarily meet people that look like you so much, but and that's also another factor to consider, because you don't want to be in a place where you're like, well, you are still going to be in a strange land, but you don't want to feel you don't want to feel like a stranger all through. So all these things are factors to consider. So after you've figured out all of these things, by now your list of universities will have reduced like drastically. Then you can start to check what the cost requirement for what the cost requirement is. Hi, this is future me editing the video. I think this should be the first filter criteria rather than leaving it for the last, because entry requirement matters a lot. So go with universities that you can meet their entry requirements first before you start to filter by location, cost of living, and all of those things that I've mentioned before. For each universities have different requirements. If you're applying for an undergraduate course, typically you need like your WAEC result. Almost for some courses you need A levels result, and for some you don't. What some would ask you for is to do a foundation. I'm talking about undergraduate course now. What some will ask you to do is to do a foundation year. For instance, I'm doing pharmacy in Sunderland, and the Sunderland requirement for undergraduates for pharmacy in Sunderland is your WAEC result and an international foundation year. So foundation year is like the pre-uni year, but they don't want you doing it in Nigeria anyway. Like, you have to do it in the UK, so you have to do like an extra year before you start uni. So, and there's like a a result that you must have it from that foundation year before you're considered for pharmacy. So you don't need A levels for that situation. Now you just need your WAEC results from Nigeria, and you apply for a foundation year in the UK. I think they accept from any university, but just to be safe, you can apply to that particular university to do your foundation year. So then for the next year, you apply to start your first year. That's for undergraduate courses. So, and maybe if you have like an undergraduate degree before, and you still want to go for a different, like, you've had an undergraduate degree before, but you're still going for a new undergraduate course. So most universities will take your undergraduate results. So far it is not less than 2-2. So you just need to go through the requirements, because when you're going through the requirements, make sure you are on international student, because there's usually like the home student section and the international student section. Most likely you will be required to enter your country, what country you're applying for. In this instance, I believe you're from Nigeria. So Nigeria, or whatever country it is that you're applying for, wherever you're watching from. So input your country, and it's going to give like a list. If you need to do IELTS test, it's going to let you know. But IELTS doesn't come later. You don't have to do it immediately. they would usually say after you've applied, after you submit your application form, they would when you get a reply back from them, or before you get a reply back from them, there's usually like the process where they will look through the application process, and they will tell you if you need to do if you need to do an if you need to take an LTS test. Don't just take an IELTS test blindly. They will inform you. It's not going to, at that point, it's not going to affect your admission. But if they've now said you need an IELTS test but you don't do it, then definitely at that point it's going to affect your admission. But in the first process, after you submit your application, they will let you know if you need to do an IELTS test. So I would say, just to be on the safer side, you can start preparing for the test. So just in case you need to do it, at least you know you're ready and you can just register for the test. So all of that was for undergraduate course. For postgraduate courses, I am almost sure you're not required to do IELTS, but I'm not very sure. It all depends on the course you're applying to and the university. Some universities don't want to understand, like they would say if English is your first language, you don't need to do the test. As we are from Nigeria, I believe English is our first language, but some universities don't accept that. So it's just go through the requirement process when you submit your application. This is for postgraduate now. They will let you know if you need to do an IELTS test. And for postgraduates now, the things that you need to submit during your application. I'm already talking about the what you need for your application. I think I'm jumping a lot. Also, another thing that I forgot to mention is for all application for undergraduate courses, for all applications, most universities in the UK, as I've said, like this is like the general rules. There's some universities that have exceptions. So for all undergraduate courses in the UK, whether home student or international students, you have to apply via this what's it called, Ucas. I can't remember I don't know what the full meaning of Ucas is. Not that I can't remember. I just know it's Ucas. So that's like where you apply to universities. So when you register on Ucas, you have an account. Then you have a slot to apply to 5 universities. So that's usually the way it is for most universities for undergraduate course. But as I've said, some universities have an exception. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, there was this university I was checking that you have to apply directly to them as an international student, even for undergraduate course. Like you apply on the university's website directly, and you have to do like result conversions and everything. As I said, I would stay away from universities like that. Go with the ones that have the general application processes. They are safer. Like it's like less risk. So for undergraduate courses, you need to apply via Ucas, but for master's courses, you're going to be applying via the university website directly. You're going to be applying via the university website directly for master's courses. So you'll be required to register, fill an application form, and all of that. That's directly on the university website. For undergrad via Ucas, it varies from university. There will be like the little variations from universities to universities, but that's just like the general rule of thumb. And also for master's courses, the things that you need to have a CV. If you're applying for a postgraduate course, you need to have a CV. And also, depending on the course that you're applying for, you need to have like what's it called, have like work experience. For instance, I checked for if you apply to study for like an MBA program or something like that. If you apply to study for an MBA program, you need a CV, you need a 3 years work experience. So I reckon the work experience is going to vary from university to university. It could be 2 years, it could be 3 years, it could be 4 years, depending on what university you're applying to. So for MBA program in what was it, in Manchester? Yeah, in Manchester. So you need to have a CV. You need to submit your CV during the application process. Submit a CV, have work experience, and your work experience also showing progression and other qualifications that you need. That's for an MBA program. So as I said, it depends on what program you're applying to study. That would determine what like the requirement is. But generally, you need a CV and you need your personal statement. Also, you need your personal statement for your undergraduate course. So I'm going to talk about. I don't think this video is very structured, but it's just here and there. Just make sure you watch everything to get all the information. I don't know how to better put it than this. It's not the most structured video, but I'm trying. I don't know how to explain it better. So you need a personal statement, both for undergraduate and master's program. So what is your personal statement? Your personal statement is a supporting statement basically for your program. So this is where you explain, or you tell them a little bit about background. And one thing I've noticed about personal statement is they don't want it to be all strictly your academic life or your work experiences. Well, a bit of your work experience is not so academic, but is as the name implies, it is personal, your personal statement. So you can talk about a bit of your background. You can talk just maybe a couple of sentences, maybe one sentence is about your background, maybe growing up or something like that. And they need to see how what you are doing at the moment, how is related to the course you're applying to, reason why you're applying to that course, and what are like the future, what do you plan on doing with this course, like what is the impact you want to have after studying this course. Those kind of things. Like, it is, I don't know how to explain it. It is not all, oh, I went to this social school, I have A star or A asterisk in something. I have first class with something. I mean, all of these things will help you have to somehow fit it into your personal statement. But the more personal part of it, like your experiences, your your experiences. I'm not very good with writing. I'm not very good with writing. So if you're like me, it is worth, if you have a friend that can help with just going through the process and the statement construction. There's some people are really good with writing. I'm not one of those persons. I'm going to like link, maybe insert a picture of what my personal statement look like, so that you understand what I mean by the personal experience that they want to see. That's for both. So you need a personal statement both for the undergrad course and the postgraduate program. You need a personal statement. So the things that I've mentioned now, I've mentioned personal statement, I've mentioned CV, which you don't need for undergrad but you need for postgraduate. And obviously you need your results. So if you're applying for postgraduate, you need like your undergraduate course. Your the course you're applying for is going to determine what's the minimum results you can have from your undergraduate course. And also the same thing goes for your if you're applying for undergraduate course, you need your WAEC results, whether it is A levels, whether it is foundation year. After that, depends on what course you're applying to do and what university you're applying via. Just make sure you read the requirements for the university. If you need any help, you can just send me universities and I can just go through the international requirements for you. If it's like, sometimes if you're sort of, I feel like if you are not used to the system, some things might sound strange or not very understandable. You can always drop a message and I will help with that. Hopefully, yeah. So as I've said, if you are applying for undergraduate course, most universities you have to apply via Ucas. So when you are submitting your application, and don't be scared, the application is not something you have to submit at once. Once you create an account, you can start to fill it in. So far, there's usually like a deadline. It's going to state, just check on the university website. It's going to state when the deadline is. I know for home students the deadline is like, it's like sometime in January. If you're not applying for medicine is like 15th of October or something like that. But for other courses, the deadline is usually like sometimes late January. I'm not sure if it's 15 or 25 or 21, somewhere in between there. It is worth checking. All of these things you should check when you are researching. These are the points that you should note when you're checking for universities. Check for their deadlines. And for postgraduate courses, they usually have varying deadlines because you are not applying via a central website. You're applying via the universities directly. So each university will state what their deadline is, and the deadline might vary from courses to courses. So before I diverted to this whole thing, I was talking about academic reference. So on Ucas, you would have like on Ucas you have the slots for academic reference. What academic reference is about is that you need someone from your previous studies. So whether it's from your secondary school or whether it's from your university, if you're applying for postgraduate course or whichever it is. So what this academic reference is about basically is you need someone from your previous school, whether it was from your secondary school or your A levels or your university, whichever it is that you're coming from below, or wherever it is that you have someone that you have a great rapport with. So you need their email. So basically the school will send an email, to them, and the email will have like a form that they have to fill. Just talking about you, I don't know what the questions. I've actually, because the times that I submitted, I know people talk about, oh, you can, because trust me, if you've been through the Nigerian university process, it can be frustrating getting a lecturer to write your academic reference for you. I ended up using a teacher from my secondary school, not from my university, because it was a hassle to get them to fill the form. Actually, I prayed them, like they were willing to fill it, but it was just I was at the deadline and I couldn't get them to fill it on time, so I had to go through a secondary school teacher that was more willing to fill it at the moment. So if it's not, it can be it can be a problem getting your university lecturers to fill it, especially if you go to federal universities or state universities in Nigeria. You all know, it's a no-go area. Maybe if you go to a private, they are more receptive in private universities, but I don't know how it is there. I didn't go to a private uni. So anyways, so you need them to fill the form. So people would say like you can write what you want them to say. Like you can construct what you want them to say and just get them to sign it. Do you get what I mean? So they just put it on the form when they say, because you can't see the form, so you have to have a good rapport with them to be able to access it. I don't know what questions they ask on the form, honestly. So I can't really say, but it's going to be about just attesting to your not studentship now, just attesting to your character and maybe things like your academic performance and things like that. I honestly do not know what it is about. So maybe, I think the mistake I made was I could have just asked that person to send the form to me so that I could see what it is, but now I don't have access to it. So the thing is, so they send an email back to university, like after filling the form they send it back to university. That's your academic reference. When you're applying via Ucas, it's just one reference, but I did see that for postgraduate courses some schools request for 2 academic references. So I would say it depends on your university and depends on what course you're studying. So some might ask for 1, some might ask for 2, but just keep it in mind, if it is postgraduate, they are most likely going to be asking for 2 references. That's one thing to keep in mind, and that is basically. And about converting your results to like the UK standard and everything, I don't think it is necessary. The only things that you should be concerned about is your personal statement. Make sure your results meets the requirement for the course you're applying to study. Your personal statement, you don't have to. If you can write it by yourself, fine. Like if you're good with writing, fine. You can write it and maybe get someone to go through it for you. Just have multiple people go through it for you, because that's like my biggest issue. Because I don't know how to write. I don't know how to construct sentences. That was like my biggest wahala. So it is worth, if you have to pay someone to just go through the process with you, because you need to submit a strong. That's like the it's like the backbone. Your results matters, but your personal statement is also like the backbone of your overall application. So I would say take it very seriously. It's like, tell us about you. Why should we take you into this university? That's basically what the personal statement is representing. So you need to talk about your background. You need to talk about your loves, your hobbies, like relate it to the subject that you're applying for, and if you've had work experience in that field, why you're deciding to study this program at the moment, and probably why you're choosing UK and not studying in Nigeria. You know, those kind of things. Like you don't need like a full paragraph for each of these things I've said. Maybe a couple of sentences. Just the problem is how to infuse those different things together. It doesn't have to be like a whole paragraph for why you're studying in the UK, a whole paragraph for why you're choosing this course, but a way to just mesh these points that I've said together. I'm going to leave my personal statement on the screen. That personal statement, as I've said, I'm not good with writing, so I'm not going to say any more about that. But I did not lie. That's one thing. Don't lie in your personal statement. Well, maybe. Don't lie in your personal statement. Let's just say it that way. Maybe not maybe. Don't lie in your personal statement. But, you know, there are things that you can amplify things. That's the word. Amplify them. Like, I'll just put a link on my personal statement so you can see. Anyways, that's it for this video. Next, I'm going to be talking about, after getting admission, what happens next. What is the next process after securing an admission. And another thing to note is that you don't have to apply for one university. You can apply for as much university as you can. For undergraduates, you have, because you're applying through that central system, you're applying for just 5 of them. And you can also check for universities that you don't have to apply via Ucas. Maybe apply for those ones like big. But for postgraduates, you're applying via the university website directly or via the university directly. So you can apply for as many as you want. Feel free. The something is your I don't know that expression, don't worry. I'm very poor with expressions. Anyways, I think I've talked about everything you need for the admission process. If there is something that you still need me to clarify on, you can always drop me a message. As I've said, you can send me a message on Instagram. I don't mind. My DMs are open. And yeah, that's it basically. And thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next video, guys. If you found this helpful, please share with your friend, anybody that you feel that might need it. And please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be making more helpful videos, and maybe I could get a guest, an international student, and talk about the process of application. Yeah, maybe, just maybe, fingers crossed, just maybe. And till then, stay safe, guys. Bye.